Hello again. My objective for this next few minutes that we have together, and somewhere between 40 and 60 minutes, we'll just see how it goes, is to teach you specifically and exactly how to not waste time, not waste effort, not waste energy, not waste money. My objective is to teach you how to become profitable and efficient in this industry of network marketing, but specifically, of course, and obviously with Agile. I've had so many instances over my career where people have said, gosh, Randy, it just seems so vague and it seems ambiguous. It's not. Folks, I want you to know this is specific and precise. If A, then B, and C, then D. And I want you to imagine a highway, and right down the center line of the highway, that's where I want you to be. And also understand that you can have a positive financial experience in this business just by being in it because of the magic of the moment where we have found ourselves with Agile. But if you want this to be the dramatic breakthrough financial experience for you that I have experienced in my life, then it's going to require that you constantly double check, recheck, and find out how close are you to the center, just the dead center line. The first thing I want you to do is to identify what it is that you hope to accomplish with Agile. And I've learned that sometimes just by changing our words around, we can get people's attention at a different level. For how many times, how many years in your life has someone said to you, make goals, set goals, realistic goals, write them down? And you know what? People get tired of hearing it. I would just ask each of you, have you ever been before instructed by someone that you respect that you ought to have physical, tangible goals, and have you been asked to write them down? Well, every hand in the room now would go up if I was in a room. But how many of you have actually got them? How many of you could go home right now and open up your goals that are written down for this month, for next month, for the month after that? For some reason, we tend not to do those things that have been proven work. And I just like to sometimes change words around a little bit. It seems to help people put a different perspective on it. If you've got goals, that's great. But how about if you just join me now and let's establish some objectives. Establish some objectives. What do you want to accomplish in Agile? What is it you want to do? And I have also learned that there's a big difference between realistic objectives and dreams. And I'm all about dreams. My life has become a dream in some respects. But when I meet a person and they tell me, gosh, Randy, I want to make $40,000 a month. And then in a little bit of discussion, I find out that they have made $40,000 a year up until now in their life. That's a big task, guys. Can that happen? Absolutely, it does happen. But in order for you to make that kind of a quantum leap in productivity, it's going to require that things about you change. The one thing that I always ask people to understand is that where we find ourselves today at this moment in time in our lives, whether we like it or whether we don't, is absolutely a reflection of our attitudes, our behaviors, and our beliefs. That's it. It's our attitudes, our behaviors, and our beliefs. And unless we are willing to change some attitudes, behaviors, and beliefs, then simply throwing those existing attitudes and behaviors and beliefs on top of a newer and better opportunity, yeah, that will create a more positive outcome because of the opportunity itself. But in order for you to have one of these breakthrough experiences, it's going to require some fundamental change. And therefore, because change, just ask yourself this question too as we get started here. Is change easy or is change difficult? What is it? Change for me has always been very difficult. Well, if change is difficult and it's going to require some change in basic attitudes, habits, behaviors, beliefs, then is it reasonable to expect that it will be easy to have a dramatic financial breakthrough in this endeavor? No, that would be a little bit nuts. There is no such thing. Change is difficult. This requires change. Therefore, a great financial experience may at times feel difficult. That's okay. Just understand what the road is. Also understand that you can bring your exact same habits, behaviors, and beliefs into this new environment. The new environment itself gets better than where you've been. And so, yeah, your results can improve a little bit. But let's talk about some fundamental basic change. Start out by setting some objectives. When a person tells me that their objective is so dramatically beyond what they've achieved before in life, I always say, let's kind of bring it home a little bit here. Let's put together a business plan to enable you to replace your current income stream as opposed to trying to do some multiples of that. Once we replace your current income stream, and by the way, for the vast majority of people that I interact with, if we replace your current income stream, we in fact gave you a big raise. Because if now you're earning the same amount of money, but you're doing it for yourself, not for somebody else, you're working when you want, where you want, with whom you want, if you want, for the same income, that still is a great big raise. And oftentimes the expenses associated with that same income go dramatically down. So let's start out by replacing your current income. What are your objectives? And then decide for yourself, what are you willing to do to accomplish those objectives? Are you willing to make some sacrifices? And just be honest with yourself. If you're not willing to make some sacrifices, fair enough. Call it what it is. You won't be frustrated with yourself as you go along if you're a little bit fair and honest with yourself as you start. So first, establish some objectives. The next thing that I really, really want you to do is gain this discipline. Develop this discipline of scheduling your Agile time. Let's assume for a second that you're an attorney, and in your primary field of endeavor right now is that you practice law. And you've got an important conference scheduled with one of your clients, And in the midst of that, here comes one of your Agile team members who calls on the phone, and your secretary says, gosh, would you like to speak to so-and-so? You're in the midst of an engagement, and your Agile team member calls. What do you think? Will you break out of the engagement to talk to your Agile team member? No, you're going to keep visiting with your client because that's what was scheduled. You have to treat Agile the same way. If you've got 10 hours a week to work with Agile and you're an attorney, and during your 10 hours a week, one of your important client calls, you should treat the Agile time the same way as you treat your other professional time. No, you're not available right now. You're just not available because this is your Agile time. You can be very, very part-time in this business, but you cannot be lackadaisical in your approach to it. You cannot be half and half in your emotional and mental commitment. My mental and emotional commitment to this business is the same. Whether I'm at a point in time in my life where I'm working at a small number of hours or whether I'm working at a large number of hours, my mental and emotional commitment is the same. Nobody wants to follow anyone anywhere who's not certain of where they're going. And so I just urge you to kind of turn up the heat a little bit with the number of hours that you're investing in Agile. Make those number of hours specific, focused, and don't let anything else get in the way. And by the way, as we go through these things, there are so many of the little suggestions that I'll give you that seem to be perhaps insignificant as a standalone suggestion, but I promise you that it's the combination of all of these different suggestions brought together into a basic set of behaviors that result in the dramatically different outcome that some people have in this business. You know, and sometimes I reference my own successes. Well, you know what? I'm one of many. I'm not one of a few. I am one of many who has had an amazing experience in this industry, and I am already one of a growing number of people who've had amazing experiences with Agile at this flash point in time where we've got this company. So the first thing I want you to do is identify for yourself what are your objectives, be a little bit realistic, share those objectives with somebody else, share them with somebody else, become public in your objectives, be realistic, schedule your Agile time very, very specifically, and then let's identify a candidate list. You know, I've had some evolution of thought here a little bit as I've gone through my career. I remember that for a lot of years I taught people that I wanted them to talk to their very best and brightest and strongest candidates first. And I really have thought that through a little bit as I've observed some people who had different outcomes than the outcome that I had. And the outcome was different because of different belief system. I know that, but I can't just like this change a belief system. But I can change outcome by a little bit different guidance. Where for so long I taught people, go to your best, your brightest, your strongest people first. What I've since come to believe is that it's important for us to develop on a positive momentum. Develop on a positive momentum. You know, I want you to imagine now that you walked out into an orchard and that you wanted to pick an apple. Who among us would get a ladder and climb to the top of the tree and pick the highest apple? Isn't it true that most of us would walk out and we'd pick an apple that was very, very close, low-hanging fruit? I've come to understand that every one of us, you, whoever you are, whatever your past successes or failures have been, we all have at least 8. There might be more, but we all have 8 people out there in the world somewhere who will do what we do because we're doing it, because of who we are, because of their relationship with us, not because of the power of the message itself. There are 8 people that if you called them today and said, hey, you know, we're going to all get together and go dig a ditch, they'd show up. You know, they'd show up with their shovel and their gloves. There are 8 people if you called and said, I know it sounds a little bit nuts, but today we're going to jump off a cliff. 8 would show up. I want those 8 to be first on the list. I really do. And why do I want those 8? Because I'm going to teach you how to use scripts. I'm going to teach you how to engage in some behaviors that are a little bit unusual, a little bit unnatural for you. And those people who would jump off a cliff with you are those people who are very forgiving. They're the people who, when you use a script and they say, hey, man, that doesn't sound like you, it sounds like a script, you can say, yeah, it is, I'm just learning. You know, I want you to build upon positive momentum. And this does represent a fairly significant shift in my attitudes and demeanors. Now, we're going to get very, very quickly to the best and the brightest and the strongest people you know. But where for so long, I taught something else that I think was incorrect. I taught, you know, if you pick up the phone and you make a phone call and it's easy, I've long taught that was probably a wasted call. If you pick up the phone, you made a call and your heart went thump, 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 it was hard, that was a good call. I've since considered that thought. I instead believe that we should build upon positive momentum, and that as we build upon making the easy calls first, as you begin to have this cascade of positive outcomes, that you will one day be like me. And what is that? See, I thought back through that. Did I ever make a phone call that was scary for me? Never once. I never made a phone call that was scary for me. Every call that I made was easy because it was predicated upon a prior success. I want you to likewise get to a point where there is no such thing as a different phone call. If the moment comes where you share the belief that I have that this is a gift that we're offering to somebody, I'm not I am not imposing upon someone. My gosh, I am granting to them an opportunity to get to a different stage of success in life. A different stage of success, and that just doesn't mean money to me. There's so many different ways to quantify success. I'm talking about different levels of success, higher levels of personal achievement, higher levels of personal growth.